An excavated Norse settlement contains far more post holes, animal bones, sickles, and quern fragments than trophies of overseas attack. That material imbalance suggests daily priorities, but it cannot produce a headcount of farmers and raiders. The categories also overlap because agriculture supported voyages, and some voyagers returned to agricultural households. Still, the surviving landscape points firmly toward a population sustained mainly by food production, not continual raiding. Understand why the farm must be reconstructed as a working system rather than a peaceful backdrop. Every ship leaving Scandinavia depended upon calories, fibers, timber, iron, and labor drawn from inhabited land. The famous raider occupied one seasonal role inside that larger and unequal economy. Most people needed reliable access to food before any minority could pursue wealth abroad. Across Scandinavia, environmental conditions varied from Danish arable zones to Norwegian valleys and northern pastoral districts. No single Norse farm plan fits all climates, soils, or centuries. Longhouses commonly combined living, storage, craft, and sometimes animal spaces beneath one extended roof. Outbuildings, fences, wells, tracks, and field boundaries reveal organized compounds rather than isolated heroic halls. At Vorbasse in Denmark, generations rebuilt farmsteads and shifted settlement layouts over several centuries. Post-hole patterns there document continuity and change without naming each resident's legal status. The buildings show where labor occurred, while seeds and animal remains identify parts of the production behind it. Farmers cultivated barley widely, alongside rye, oats, wheat, flax, and other crops in regionally changing proportions. Archaeobotany studies preserved plant remains, often charred grains and seeds recovered from excavated deposits. Those samples reveal what reached particular contexts, not exact annual harvest totals for an entire community. Pollen and landscape studies can trace cultivation and vegetation change across broader areas. Together, these methods show sustained management of land through the period, usually called the Viking Age. Livestock converted pasture and fodder into meat, milk, wool, traction, hides, and manure. Cattle, sheep, goats, pigs, and horses carried different value according to local ecology and household strategy. Winter imposed a severe calculation because animals surviving indoors or near settlements required stored fodder. Poor hay harvest could force slaughter before spring, reducing future herds as well as immediate security. Seasonal pressure made agricultural knowledge as consequential as seamanship. Spring demanded preparation and sowings, summer brought grazing and haymaking, and autumn concentrated harvest and preservation. Fishing, hunting, gathering, and woodland use supplemented cultivation according to region. Coastal households could combine farming with fisheries and transport without treating occupations as exclusive identities. Craft production likewise belonged within household and specialist settings. Textiles required cleaning fibers, spinning thread, weaving cloth, dyeing, cutting, and repairing. Sailcloth magnified that labor because a vessel's sail consumed an enormous quantity of prepared fiber and skilled work. Exact labor estimates vary with reconstruction assumptions, but the commitment was unquestionably substantial. Blacksmiths made and repaired tools whose everyday importance exceeded their visibility in heroic literature. Carpenters shaped buildings, chests, wagons, boats, and farming equipment. Querns ground grain repeatedly, turning harvest into food through work seldom recorded by named chroniclers. These tasks were distributed through gender, age, status, skill, and household authority, though arrangements varied. Women held crucial responsibilities in food processing, textiles, dairying, property, and household management. Men farmed as well as traveled, fought, hunted, built, and traded. Children learned work early, while older or injured residents could contribute skills not requiring the heaviest exertion. Enslaved people performed agricultural and domestic labor under coercion, and their contribution cannot be folded into a harmonious household portrait. Later law codes describe categories of freedom, property, inheritance, and dependency, but they postdate much of the Viking Age. They may preserve older practices while also reflecting the societies that wrote them down. Archaeology rarely identifies legal status securely from a single house or skeleton. Even so, unequal access to land and labor is visible in sharply different farm sizes and consumption patterns. Elite residences demonstrate how political power rested upon agricultural surplus. The Great Hall at Borg in Lofoten stood within a farm complex whose scale supported hospitality and authority. Feasting converted stored food and drink into alliance, reputation, and obligation. A chieftain's overseas ventures could therefore grow from control over farms rather than separation from them. Followers required provisions before departure and support during their absence. Ships needed crews whose participation removed workers from home during valuable parts of the year. Voyage timing interacted with winds, sailing conditions, assemblies, markets, and agricultural calendars. Not every able person could leave simultaneously without threatening the household's survival. This constraint alone makes a permanently raiding majority highly improbable. Written sources distort the comparison because attacks generated exceptional records. Monastic annals noted fleets, destruction, tribute, and political crisis, not ordinary Scandinavian planting. Their silence about northern fields reflects authorial attention rather than empty countryside. Skaldic poetry celebrated patrons, voyages, battles, and generosity because those subjects rewarded poets and rulers. Later sagas built memorable narratives around feud, travel, settlement, and exceptional individuals. Farm work appears within them, but literary action naturally favors disputes over repeated maintenance. No surviving source conducted an occupational census covering Scandinavia throughout the Viking Age. Therefore, a precise percentage of farmers cannot be defended. The word farmer creates another modern problem because many households practiced mixed subsistence and seasonal work. A person might cultivate land, fish offshore, trade at a market, attend an assembly, and join one expedition. Which single occupation should a modern chart assign to that life? The better distinction lies between the economic base and episodic activities. Agriculture and related food production formed the base for most settled communities. Raiding was an intermittent undertaking available unevenly and sustained by that base. Market towns add complexity without reversing the pattern. Hedeby, Ribe, Burka, and Kaupang supported merchants, craftspeople, servants, laborers, and political agents. Urban residents relied upon food and raw materials arriving from surrounding regions. Their growth increased specialization while binding towns more tightly to rural production. Silver moving through markets did not replace the need for grain, livestock, fish, fuel, and cloth. Foreign goods found on farms reveal participation in exchange through several hands. An Arabic silver coin could reach a rural household without its owner traveling to the Islamic world. Likewise, an imported bead does not convert everyone at its fine spot into a professional merchant. Settlement overseas often intensified the agricultural purpose of movement. Migrants to Iceland established farms where grazing, hay production, fishing, and household organization shaped survival. Later Icelandic narratives describe settlement generations afterward and must be checked against archaeology and environmental evidence. In Greenland, Norse communities maintained livestock farming alongside hunting and exchange under demanding conditions. North American archaeology at Lons Os Meadows documents a short-lived Norse presence, not a continent of farming colonists. Different destinations thus joined raiding, trading, conquest, and land-seeking in varying proportions. Land could be acquired through purchase, grant, alliance, occupation, or dispossession. Calling every migrant a farmer can sanitize the violence that sometimes created new estates. Calling every migrant a raider erases what settlers then built and maintained. The relationship between farms and warfare also changed as kings gained power. Rulers drew ships, supplies, taxes, and military service from territories under their authority. Large campaigns were logistical achievements built from dispersed production. This system could burden free households and dependent laborers who never shared equally in overseas rewards. Captives taken abroad might be forced into the very agricultural economy that enabled future expeditions. They could be connected stages in extracting labor, resources, status, and political power. Settlement density, agricultural tools, plant remains, animal bones, buildings, and field systems all point toward pervasive food production. Voyage records, weapon finds, ship evidence, and overseas settlements prove substantial mobility without demonstrating majority participation in raids. Exceptional burials cannot bridge that numerical gap because grave ritual does not equal an occupational register. A defensible reconstruction places farmers, pastoralists, fishers, craftspeople, dependents, and enslaved workers beneath the celebrated maritime activity. Many individuals crossed those roles, especially across seasons and life stages. Thus, most Norse people were probably involved in farming or its supporting household economy rather than regularly raiding. The qualification matters because direct population statistics do not survive, and agriculture itself included several social positions. Returning to the written record, the chronicler's approaching fleet remains real but radically selective. Beyond its horizon stood the stored hay, woven sail, slaughtered livestock, and harvested grain-making departure possible. The raid was the visible edge of a society whose greater labor stayed rooted in fields, byres, waters, and workshops.